Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stacy with Plan on Charms. Today we are talking journals. So I belong to a couple of journaling Facebook groups, and some people are very confused as to how to reinforce or help the binding of journals last longer, so that they're not falling apart, especially with all of the sisterhood of the traveling journal, where the journals are traveling, out of state, out of country, and that sort of thing. So I am not an expert. This is just what I have personally experienced by creating junk journals and participating in the sisterhood of the traveling journal and that sort of thing. So let's go over a couple of journals here. So the one that I'm currently working on is the book journal. It's called Sisterhood of the Traveling Book Nook. So that's what I'm working on here. Now, this one is the first one that I am doing with rings or coils. However, I have used a planner for several years, since like 2014, 2015. So we're talking over 10 years that I have been using a planner, and I have been working in scrapbooks for over 20 years. So I am very familiar with paper and binding and that sort of thing. Now, as far as making your own and like sewing the signatures in, I am not going to go over that. I am not someone that makes my own journals. These are all purchased or recycled or upcycled journals. So the first one we're going to go over is the coiled ones. Now, the advantage to these is you can easily tear the pages out. So like if you mess up on a page, you can tear it out very easily. Or if it starts to get a little bit too chunky, like this one is not too bad at all, actually. And I have done a handful of pages in here, but none of them are really, dimensional or popping up. Now, when it comes to coil bound journals, I strongly suggest looking in the art aisle at your local craft store or even Walmart, Five Below. They all have them. And I think I got this one at Five Below, but I could be wrong because I got it a few years ago, so I don't exactly remember where I got it. But this is actually a journal that is designed for, what is it called? When you use different textiles, so we're talking thicker paper, you could watercolor on it, you can sketch on it. So when you're looking, I would look for journals that have nice and thick paper. I don't really care for the textured paper. This is nice and smooth, and I would say the pages are probably about 65-pound weight, or about like 120 to 140 GSM. I don't know exactly, that's just how it feels to me. But these pages here are nice and thick, so they can handle a little bit more weight here on the spine. So it's not going to tear out the pages as easily. I mean, obviously, use your discretion at the weight. you want it to be. But for example, this one here, I've got scrapbook paper, I've got an envelope that has a journaling card. So this page is pretty heavy, and I am not worried about it falling apart. The coils of this are nice and strong. So these are designed for the extra weight of painting, of drawing, of, you know, taking it everywhere. You do want to watch the coils to make sure they don't get bent, but I am not worried about this one at all. So again, look in the like sketching for the multi-use journals. So not the kind that you're just going to jot down notes. Those pages are too thin and they will tear. These ones are stronger and less likely to tear. So look where the sketchbooks are. And like I said, it's a multi-use, so you can sketch, paint, watercolor, all of that. So the pages are nice and strong. So I did add in this band by simply hot gluing it to the back here and putting paper over it, so it's going to stay in there. And this band is already stretched out, which is why I used it, because as the journal grows, this has got room to stretch. So I didn't want it to be tight now, and then once it starts growing, it'd be too tight. So if you guys have comments or questions, please leave it in the comment section down below, and I will do my best to answer your questions, okay? Again, I am not an expert. This is just what I have personally experienced by working in journals for 20 plus years. Let me just grab some water. Okay. Next, we are going to look at the traditional bookbinding journals. This one I got from Hobby Lobby. I've used Archer and Olive, which I absolutely love. I've also used Notebook Therapy. Their paper and their structure of their journals are pretty much identical to Archer and Olive as far as the quality and everything about the journal. Now, what I do with these, you guys have seen, I'm sure, several times across several videos where you open up your journal and you've got this funky, partially glued page, and a lot of people just glue those two together, right? Well, that's where you start. You're going to glue those together. Now, if you start flipping through here, you are going to see that each one of these signatures are stitched in. Okay, so we are talking about, what, 10-ish pages or so. So if you go to the back part of that signature, you are again going to come across pages that are partially attached. Okay, so let me see if you can see here. Well, you can't really see, but I'm going to do my best to show you here. Let me zoom in. Okay, so do you see how each one of these has that little scallop part? Those are signatures for each one. So you see there's multiples of them. Well, each signature is sewn in and then it's glued in. Well, where it's glued, it is these two pages here. So it's going to be in between each one of these signatures. If you look how it's partially glued. So those two pages you are going to glue together. I use just an all-purpose Elmer's glue stick. Let me zoom back out here. Okay, just standard glue stick. You can use a tape runner as well. There are several different kinds available. Actually, I don't even know where mine is. There it is. So this is the one that I have. I just got it on Amazon, and you can use those as well. They are perfectly fine, nothing wrong with them. However, if you use tape runners, you are going to go through it very quickly, okay? That's why I use a glue stick. It is a lot more not user friendly, but cost effective, okay? Because I go through a whole glue stick and probably some for each journal that I do. That's why I suggest using the glue stick, especially with back to school coming up. You're going to hit up all of those sales. So stock up on glue sticks. The only thing you want to be careful of is overbuying, because these do eventually dry out. So grab a dozen of them. You know, don't buy 50 or 100 of them, but you know, get 10 or 12. I do prefer the purple ones, but these ones are the ones that were on sale, so I picked those up. Okay, so again, if you have questions about that and how to attach the pages, let me know. But again, it's just going to be the 2 pages that are in between each signature. These will be thick. They are great to use if you are coloring with like alcohol markers, because then you've got 2 thick pages that it would have to go through, you know, to leak through there. But it's perfectly fine to just use it as a regular page, no big deal. You can also glue, you know, an inch at the bottom and then the sides, leaving a pocket here if you wanted to. I also like using these as Dutch doors, where you can cut down the page and have this cute little page in between. I don't know that I have any nearby to show you an example. But anyways, that's what I like to do. Now, by doing that, yes, you are going to have a few less pages, but it is more likely to hold together when you reinforce those, you know, 10 pages or so, however many signatures you've got in there. Now, another thing to help with it from getting curled up, too bulky, or anything like that, is to watch your paper. Okay, I see a lot of people just glue pages down like this and don't keep it separated on the spine there. Okay, they just glue it in, and that is going to cause bulk. Let me just show you here. Okay, I'm just gonna fold this in half and pretend it is right there. Okay, this is not even gluing it down, but look at how much bulk it adds right there, just that one page. That's not even adding anything else to it. However, if you do, let's see, this, where it's not touching the spine at all, it's leaving just a, you know, a 1/4 inch gap from the center. When you put it together, it is not as bulky. Okay, let me just example here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of cardstock on each side, and that is flatter. So don't pay attention to the one with the flowers here. That page is very bulky. But this other one, it's flatter than just that one page. Let me see if I can do a side by side to show you an example here. And Okay, so look at that. So we're looking at this spot here and this spot here. And this has one piece of cardstock. This has 4 per side. So if you keep it away from the spine, the binding part there, and just leave that 1/4 inch gap, it's going to make it so much less bulky right there, because that's where it's going to break, and that is where it's going to show all of the wear and tear on your journals. So just keep that in mind when you are putting cardstock. Just keep a 1/4 inch gap, cut it down slightly smaller. So when I use a standard A5 size like this, I cut my page to 5.25 by 7.75. Okay, that is giving me a 1/4 inch all the way around of a gap, so that it's not going all the way to the edge of the page on any side. And it makes it so much nicer when you're adding layers and layers in there. Okay, now the last little part here is altered books. There is actually a video on my page where I created an altered book, and I love that one. This one was a swap, so I sent that one to this gal and she sent me this one. So this is the one that she created for me, but I have added a few things. So see here how this cardstock is not all the way to the edge. That's what you're going to want to do. Now this, I did put in this page here. It's layers and layers of tissue paper. I still need to trim it down and clean it up. But it's tissue paper with Mod Podge. So it kind of gives this layered look. It's nice and thick, especially on this page where it's got a piece of cardstock on the back. Okay, now in here, what was done is every 5 to 7 pages were torn out and they are then attached. So let me see here if I can find a good example. So if you look on this here, you'll see that there's some pages that were torn out and then just attached these 2 pages by a pocket. So inside here is all the torn out pages, and then a pocket was created. So that way it hides where all those tear marks are. Okay, and then this is again where you're going to want to glue pages that are the 2 signatures attached. I'm trying to find it here, but I think, okay, so it actually is this part here. So she did tear out the pages in between the signatures and then glue those together. So that way it helps reinforce. And let's see where we have another one. Okay, so this is where the 2 signatures meet, and this is where I would glue those pages together. And since this is already an altered book, I'm going to kind of pull these pages apart a little bit, see if I can give you a better example of where these things tend to tear and come apart. I'm just going to lightly run my knife there to detach the glue. Okay, let's see. Okay, so without gluing the pages together, do you see how this glue here just slowly starts coming apart? And that's where the binding starts breaking. So that is why if you glue these two pages together, it's going to reinforce the spine of any book-bound journals. So regardless if you are going to be altering a book like this that you picked up that was falling apart, or if you're going to use an Archer and Olive journal or a journal from Hobby Lobby or wherever, just the traditional book-bound journals, that is where you're going to want to glue those two pages together. And like I said, you can glue it and create a pocket, or just glue them together, which is typically what I do, is just glue the pages together. You can cut it down to create a Dutch door if you want, but just gluing it down works. My little mat here keeps sliding all over the place. Now, if you want to go with a wet glue, I like using Fabri-Tac, and this here works really well. And I would get the glue into the binding, nice and good. You don't want it heavy, just make sure you're not missing any spots, and then go along the edges so that these pages are glued down really well together. Okay, so if you glue it too heavy, you will get warped pages, and we don't want that. So just light coats here, but again, try and get to the edge the best you can, and nice and thicker on the binding part. And I'm just going to run some over on this side. Get rid of that little air pocket in there so it doesn't spill over. Okay, now we are going to fold these pages over, and I am going to grab my scraper tool. This one is from Cricut, but Dollar Tree sells them as well. You can get them at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, anywhere where cutting machines are sold, really. But yeah, I just scrape it to make sure that there's no air pockets and that glue is evenly dispersed throughout the whole page there. Okay, so now we've got those two pages glued together, and I'm not worried about it falling apart. Okay, so again, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section down below. But I hope that helped you with holding together the binding of journals for future reference. All right, and I will see you all later. All right, bye friends.